Welcome to the Lady Lawyer League podcast, and we have Tosha Heavican, and you're going to learn all about Tosha on this podcast. And I'm so excited to have you talk about who you are and how you got here. And I know your story of coming here and like being our partner is super cool to me. And I know you love telling the story, so this will be fun.
Yeah, well, it's everyone's favorite topic, me.
Duh.
This is the Lady Lawyer League podcast, Omaha's leading lady lawyers, empowering women to be legal savvy. Hosted by Susan Reff and Tracy Hightower of Hightower Reff Law.
Okay, so you are Tosha. You are a partner attorney at Hightower Reff Law. And I think it's really important for listeners to get to know attorneys as real people too, and where we came from, why we're a lawyer. So start with that.
Sure.
Like, why the heck are you a lawyer?
Well, so my journey was a little bit maybe unconventional. So when I first went to undergrad, I wanted to work in newspapers. And
What is that?
Like journalism.
What's a newspaper?
Right?
I do like a real newspaper.
That's sort of part of the reason why I also went to law school, because it was somewhat of a dying industry.
You saw the writing on the wall.
Exactly. Well, at least as, sort of what I contributed. So I did more of the pagination. So like I would work on the next day's paper to design the sections or whatever, put the stories on the page, choose the pictures, things like that. And that all was becoming templated. And so there was really less need for my position in the journalism field. And during my undergrad, I had taken a journalism and law class as part of my degree and really enjoyed it. I actually sort of nerded out on a paper about copyright law. Which sounds boring to everyone, and that's fine, but it was interesting to me.
Kind of sounds boring to me.
And so, I remember I was running one morning with my dad and, sort of talking about the next step in my life and, journalism as an industry was changing. And, I'd always kind of wanted to go to law school. And he said to me, well, you're not married and you don't have kids. If you want to go.
But what if you were?
Well,
your life's over.
No, but his point was there's no better time than right now. Like if you're never going to be as free as you are now if you decide to do any of those other things. And so, sort of just jump both feet in. And so I really kind of took that and ran with it. And so decided to go to law school. And then because I had worked for a couple of years, so I was somewhat of a non-traditional student, right? I didn't go right after undergrad. So I ended up doing law school in 2.5 years instead of 3. So I could just get done. And so then I took the bar exam.
Only geniuses do that.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
So then you took the bar exam and you became a lawyer. But how did you find Hightower Reff Law and come here?
Okay. So I started at a sole practitioner office and worked there for a year and then went to
had a terrible experience, and we won't name names, but also like that became part of your story.
Yes, it was. So my first job as an attorney out of law school was for a sole practitioner. And what I like to tell people is that it taught a lot to me about the type of lawyer that I did want to be and the type of lawyer I did not. And so I transitioned from that job, actually, kind of crazy, but I took a job as a paralegal.
Because that first job was so terrible, you had to get out of there.
Yeah, it wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And so
she's being really nice.
And so I transitioned to a different firm and I worked there for about 1.5 years as a paralegal, and then for the senior partner of the firm. And what was kind of cool and sort of fortuitous is that he still did tape dictation. And so
he probably still does.
Well, I did get him to switch over to digital before I left, but
digital dictation.
Right.
Yeah.
So tape dictation, literally he would talk into a recorder that had a tape in it and it like a cassette, right? If you have to Google that, all of you youngins out there, but And then he would walk the tape down to my office, and then I would put it into a recorder or like a tape player that I had headphones for, and it had a foot pedal. So I could push the foot pedal to stop and start the tape. So then I would type what he was saying into the tape. But what was really kind of cool about that experience is because of that, I got sort of this unfettered access to his brain, because he would dictate documents and, pleadings, different things that I would have to type, and he would explain why he was doing the things he was doing.
So you were like his ChatGPT.
Yes.
He said into the tape, and then you like created a document after what he said.
Yes.
Whoa.
And I started going to all of his client appointments, and so it really was a great sort of integration into this area of law that I now practice that I really hadn't had a ton of exposure to. And so about a year to a year and a half in, I said, hey, you should hire me as a lawyer. I'll still do some of this dictation stuff that you need me to do, but I had sort of streamlined a lot of things, right? And so I'm like, you could also have me work as an attorney. And then I sort of just continued to move up from there. So eventually then we hired a paralegal to be underneath me and the attorney that I was still working for, and sort of started bringing on my own cases. And so because of that, I wanted to start really defining my practice areas and bringing in my own clients. And so I joined this networking group at the time. It was a chapter with BNI. And in that chapter was an attorney by the name of Susan Reff. And
our very own Susan Reff.
Yes. But what was super crazy, and this is so like, I don't even know what the word is. Kismet, maybe?
Kismet?
Yeah.
David, can I have the definition of that, please? Destiny and fate. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So
spelled Kismet.
Yes, Kismet.
Okay, great. New word of the day.
So I'm in this group and I meet Susan, and she mentions her law partner, Tracy Hightower Henny. And I said, oh my gosh, I know her. And she's like, you know her? And I said, yeah. When I was in law school still, I went to this sort of networking lunch thing for the Bar Association or something. I frankly don't remember anything that was said at this, I'm sure, very amazing presentation. But
you did remember Tracy.
Because Tracy walks up to this table full of people that she did not know, and there's one chair left, and she says, is anyone sitting here? Can I sit here? And we're like, sure. And so then she and I chatted, and through the course of this, she's like, well, we should have coffee sometime and we can talk about what it's like to be a female lawyer. And you were just starting your practice then. I think you and Susan were just starting to maybe office share or something.
So this was the practice of the law office of Tracy L. Hightower.
Yes.
In 2009.
2009.
David just saw my announcement for that. And then that's where Kismet brought me to Susan.
Yes.
Okay. That's a whole other episode.
So fast forward to, I actually did take Tracy up on her offer to go to coffee, and I met her downtown at a Starbucks, and I felt so fancy just like walking in, talking to this lawyer, and you know,
we're like the same age, right?
You're a couple years older than me. Plus, did you go to law school right out of undergrad
I did,
too?
yeah.
So you had been practicing also, so I go and have coffee with her, and it's just like so wonderful and great and awesome. And then I don't talk to her again for like a decade or something,
right?
Until I, run into Susan and sort of become friends and legal colleagues with her, and so then through Susan and Tracy, Hightower Reff Law is referring me a lot of business types of cases that they don't handle anymore, because they were mostly doing the firm was mostly doing criminal defense and family law, whereas I was focusing more on estate planning and guardianships and conservatorships, things like that. And so I was in BNI with Susan for about 3 years. And then she and Tracy approached me about coming. There's
that TikTok meme with the little kid that's like, come over here. And the mom's like, where are we going? He's like, it's a surprise. Don't you like surprises? That's my favorite one right now. Please, David, will you like show that in the podcast?
Come over.
Where are we going?
Oh, around. It's a surprise. Do you like surprises?
I do.
Okay.
So
So-
Susan says,
Yeah,
Come.
so we're at one of the monthly meetings for the State Bar Association Leadership Academy, and Susan was actually presenting at this one. It had to do with marketing and like getting your name out there and things like that. And she's literally on the stage. I don't know. I'm probably gonna get her in trouble, but she's on the stage and she's texting me, "Hey, do you want to hang out with me after this?"
she's texting you while she's on a panel.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And because of course I was asking like superb questions during the panel, right? So she's texting me and she's like, "Hey, do you want to hang out with me after?" And at that time, Hightower Reff Law was like, because we were downtown and the office was just like across the street. And she's like, "Tracy's still at the office. We should go say hi to her." And I was like, "Okay." And I was super pregnant at the time. I remember that. And so I waddled on over to Hightower Reff Law and we walk up to your office. And I think we were talking for approximately 2 minutes and 17 seconds. And then you said, "So do you want to come work with us?"
Yeah, Susan and I had a conversation before this. So this wasn't a surprise.
To the two of you.
Right, yeah.
It was very much a surprise to me.
And
but-
you were like,
And I was like, "I don't want to do divorce work." And you said, "Well, what if you came here and did what you do?" And so the new department was born, and it's just been an awesome experience ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that story so much. And the pieces of that story that I love are like the power of networking, right? We talk about networking all the time in our office and how you may not know the benefit of it in that moment, but like, look, I came up to that table not knowing anyone, met you, and that ended up being this huge benefit 10 years after that.
Yeah.
And then Susan asking that question, "Hey, you want to hang out after this?" You know, those things are so powerful and create kismet,
Yes.
right, in the world. And I
Yes.
think that's pretty cool. So you came and you joined our firm, and Susan and I remember at that moment were like, we don't do estate planning, but we've been referring all of these clients to Tosha, and we were like, how do we make sure she knows what she's doing and like we oversee her work? And very quickly we were like, we don't need to. You know, like we've already trusted all of our clients to her, referring them, and we're just going to have a point in our practice as we grow that we can't just oversee everyone. We hire people because we trust them and they have high integrity and we have malpractice insurance, and
Right.
that's it. And so you were the first sort of experiment of that, and thank God it worked out, right? Because we would have probably never hired anyone after that if it didn't. So it's been such an amazing piece to have you in the firm after having only done after having only done family law and criminal defense, to add estate planning in, because now we literally have clients that overlap in those areas, and we say, "Oh, I can put you on Tasha's calendar tomorrow so you can talk to her about this thing." And I have so many things that overlap in my practice that I need you for, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
But I do remember when you first came, you were like, "I don't want to do family law." We're like, "Fine, you don't have to." And then you were like, "I also don't really ever want to go to court."
Yes.
And now you're like this badass in court. And so how long have you been here?
So I came to Hightower Reff Law in the fall of 2018.
And so in those, I'm doing math in my head, 8 years,
8 years.
you like grew up being afraid of the courtroom, and then like now sort of mastering this idea. Like, talk to us about that. I'm
Sure.
totally going off script, but I think this is really important.
Well, I think what's been really great for me is sort of this idea of investing in myself, not only from the perspective of, allowing myself to invest in me, but also the firm really putting an emphasis on, let's find what your strengths are, but let's also challenge some of those, what I now know, or maybe, I don't want to say ridiculous, but, some insecurities that maybe you should face, right? Like you can't let those things always control you, and really having the support. And Susan says this phrase a lot that I really love. She said, we have to learn sometimes to just save a place for people until they get there, right? Like she saved a place for me, knowing that eventually I would get to a place where I feel more unstoppable than I ever have, and not to say that I have every single answer or I do everything perfectly and right.
I know you like that song.
What?
The Unstoppable
Oh,
song.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I try to get my son to have it be his song when he comes out on the wrestling mat, like, I'm like, it's so empowering, you know? But it's just, it was definitely a fear of mine. And I think, I feel like I was, sort of to counter, I guess, my fear of the courtroom was this idea that I have this fear of failure, right? I don't like if I feel like I'm not doing something well. And so it was easier to just say, well, I can't do it, or I might be bad at it, so I should just stay in this sort of safe zone, right? But I've really...
Also known as the imposter syndrome,
right?
That most women deal with.
Right? But I've had, and I won't name names for, obvious ethical reasons, but I've had a series of cases in my practice over the last... 5 or 6 years that I've really had to say, listen, to myself, right? I'm talking to myself and I'm saying, I know you're afraid of X, Y, and Z, but these clients need you.
Right.
They need you to be brave. They're, my clients, sometimes I'm dealing with cases involving kids. I'm dealing with cases involving, just people that can't, for this reason or that reason, they can't advocate for themselves.
Right.
And so I have to just sort of frankly suck it up.
Yeah.
And
put on your big girl panties.
Exactly. And ever since doing that, like, I've just never really taken them off.
Yeah.
Right?
And I always remember like some of the beginning cases where, you can do a lot of transactional work, which means you don't have to go to court. You draft a lot of documents and then they get signed and there's no litigation involved. But there were then points at the very beginning where it was like, oh, whoops, now there's a court hearing on this transactional thing you did.
Yes.
And you were like, Tracy, I can't do it. And I was like, well, who else is going to do it? You know all the facts of the case. Just get your ass to court. Tell me how it is when you get back.
I remember one time, or very early on, I was like, you're going to court with me. And so Tracy comes to the courthouse with me, and I think there was there might have been a guardian ad litem or something involved in the case, which is like another lawyer, right? And she walks in and you're like, hi, so-and-so. And you're like, do you want to know how much I know about this case? And you hold up a blank piece of paper. I'm like, Tracy, that is not inspiring good things in me.
Tosha knows everything about this case and I don't. And I'm literally just here to hold her hand.
Yep.
And that happened like maybe one more time after that with the really good story that we probably don't have time for.
Yeah.
And
well, the other part about that case, though, or that day, that the really cool story happened. But at the end, we stood up after the judge had left and Tracy looks at me and she says, you do not need me here.
Yeah.
And then she walked out.
And that was the last time I went to court with you. I do think though, I still have those moments too where I'm like,
sure,
what the hell is going to happen in court today? I'm really nervous, because you get into these moments where you actually care about clients. And I think that was such an obvious thing about you that we knew about you before we asked you to come work with us, because we were already referring all these clients to you. And so we knew you were taking good care of them. And I think that's true about every one of our clients or every one of our attorneys in our office, is that you better give a damn about the client or else you're not going to work here. And do we always get everything our clients want? No. Are we the right lawyer for everyone? No. But we're going to give a damn and we're going to do our best. And that's all we can do. And I think that's the biggest thing, that I appreciate about you, is that like sometimes it's hard, but you can do hard things. And the comfort level of the courtroom is also a lot easier now that you know the judges and we know the courtroom, like physically what it looks like, and all those things can be really scary, but it's scarier to our clients than it is for us.
Absolutely. I mean, even just recently, I appeared for the first time at a courthouse that I had never appeared in front of before. In front of a judge I had never appeared in
Literally
front of.
Lincoln.
Well, but still,
she didn't even know where to park. And
no,
she left 3 hours early for this hearing. And I was like, Lincoln is 45 minutes away. It won't take you 2 hours to park.
It was only 2 hours early. And I was going to stop and get a coffee, and then I got too nervous that I would not know where I was going. So
Tasha,
I didn't.
You didn't even get a coffee.
No, but I did actually. The parking did suck, and I had to park like 3 blocks away. So I was glad. I do not like to feel rushed when I am nervous.
Yeah.
And so, and that's just part of my, you learn the things about yourself, like what can I do to help myself not feel crazy?
Totally.
Right. And if
Yeah.
it means leaving a half hour early or whatever, then you do that. But
And we know, like, the Douglas County Courthouse, you know exactly how many minutes you need to
Yes.
leave to get there on time, to walk into court 30 seconds before it starts,
Yep.
and even put in some buffer time for the construction downtown.
Right.
So there is a huge comfort level to that. Yeah.
Well, and now that I've been there, and sort of know, because I actually, when I got to Lincoln, I even went and talked to the clerk and asked about exhibit stickers, asked about, those types of things that you learn, has nothing to do with necessarily your law degree or being a lawyer. It's sort of the practical and logistical type stuff,
That really do matter, though.
Exactly, because you go into the courtroom, and if that judge expects you to already have your exhibit stickers on and you don't because you didn't ask, that can set a tone for the hearing that I don't want for my clients.
Right. And this was one of your favorite types of hearings.
Yes.
Tell us what that is. What type of hearing is that?
Oh my gosh, adoptions.
Yeah. I do. I'll tell you, like, before you came, I did most of the adoptions. And then you were like, well, let me do a couple. And then you're like, can I do them all now? And I was like, oh, yeah. One of the other really cool stories that Tasha and I have together, too, is that we've done a lot of surrogacy cases together. And we've done them before Tasha came to work here. And, we have had a couple of situations where, I don't even remember, you represented the surrogate and I represented the biological parents. And, it requires the creation of a contract, basically. And then this baby is born, and the baby goes, to the people, the parents that they want to go to. In those situations, the biological parents, that didn't actually carry the child. And we also have done some things in the legislature together to, like, create a situation that makes it easier for people to plan their families, specifically in surrogacy. And that stuff was very complex. And, we've testified in the legislature on surrogacy. And in Nebraska, imagine this, the science hasn't caught up with the law, right?
Right.
So I think it's really important that when we have attorneys who specialize in something very particular, that they also really love that, like, we actually use our voice in the legislature as an expert on the topic. And so we've done a lot of that. But surrogacy at some point required an adoption. So, like, that was a piece of the adoption. And what we changed is that it doesn't require an adoption anymore.
Right.
But we still get to help the families through some pieces of the surrogacy. But you get to do the adoptions. And obviously adoptions are personal to you and really important to you. So tell us where that comes from.
Sure. So when I was in the 6th grade, I was adopted by my stepdad. And I was old enough. So it was my brother and I, actually. And I was old enough that I remember the hearing. And I was adopted in Iowa. And so in that particular case, the hearing was actually just in the judge's chambers. So we didn't even go into the courtroom. But I remember the judge sitting behind his desk and, of course, my whole huge family being there. And so it's sort of a full circle thing for me to know now, sort of behind the scenes, how that process goes, and to be able to assist families of all different shapes and sizes, complete that chapter and move on to the next one. So
yeah. And we've been doing some really fun things in our office on adoption days in our office.
yes, so we have an adoption mascot. It's Ollie the octopus, and she is so fun. I have sort of had this dream to do this for a number of years, and so we're just sort of kicking it off the ground now. And so
well, one day you were like, I have this dream and I have this adoption in like 2 hours, and we were like, David, go find an octopus right now so we can give this at this hearing today. And then all of a sudden an octopus showed up, and we were like, we're doing it now, we're just starting it.
Yeah,
like, let's not have dreams and not just do them.
Yeah. And so I try to, whenever we have adoption day, then Ollie makes an appearance and shares some wisdom. And so it's pretty cool to be able to, and I love to, because then, so full circle, the child that gets adopted gets Ollie.
Yeah.
So I take Ollie with me to court, and then she goes home with that child. And it's so fun to see their big eyes when they see it. And because, of course, it's like the softest and the cutest, and it's orange because, of course. And like its arms are like spindly.
Yeah.
So the kids can like carry them almost like a backpack because it like wraps around their shoulders. It's so cute. It's
Yeah.
so fun.
Okay, so adoptions and surrogacy, those are the fun things, but you also do a ton of estate planning.
Yes.
So tell us, just in general, because we will have full estate planning podcast episodes, but tell us in general, like, why is estate planning so important? What does it mean? And what's one thing everyone should know about estate planning?
Sure. So I think what's really important when you're talking about estate planning is sort of to look at it backwards a little bit and think about what would happen in a situation if I do nothing, if I do no planning, and then assuming that's not what we want to have happen, then what can we do to fix that or to make sure that doesn't happen? Because I also do a ton of estate administration, right? So after someone dies, if they have a will or a trust or nothing, I help those families transition assets and take care of final wishes and things like that. So from the planning perspective, if you do it in advance, we look at, okay, what are your wishes for your assets? What are your wishes for who would take care of you if you need somebody to take care of you, and sort of what that looks like.
What are your wishes for your cats?
Exactly.
Susan gets my cats.
I have done animal trusts.
My cats are living forever, by the way. I'm okay with that, but whatever. She's getting them. I'm not probably going to add any more cats after these ones pass. But
Who gets your dogs?
well, we never put the dogs because the dogs have such a shorter lifespan.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone will want them, but I don't know.
It's hard to think about.
It is
isn't
hard
it?
to think about, but they are not in my will. My cats are, though. Susan's going to need some money to help care for the cats. I think we have to add that in. But anyways, so yeah, all the things that need to happen with your stuff when you die.
Right.
Yeah. And so one thing that I always appreciate about you is that you talk about how you don't need to have an estate to have an estate plan.
That's correct. It's really, so much of it is about decision making and the support that you need during the times in your life when you can't handle things on your own. And so thinking about who's going to step in to make those decisions, who's going to help you, transition into the next chapter, things like that. And really it's to try to avoid, I've had so many consults lately, unfortunately, with families who are not getting along because they're fighting over who's in charge of dad's money or who's in charge of the family farm or who gets this and, who gets that. And is dad going to receive care? Is he going to go into a nursing home? Is he going to stay at home? And how that affects our inheritance and all of those kinds of things, where if you can really, as a person, make those decisions ahead of time and sort of have it laid out. I mean, I've even gone so far as I had a client who had a house. This person is not married, but they want to make sure that their longtime partner can live in the house. Okay, well then, as part of the estate plan, we're going to draft the lease so that, your family knows that this is what's going to be happening if you're not here.
And they're not going to get kicked out right away.
Exactly. Or things like, I've done some different trusts. Like I had a case one time where very loving couple, one of the spouses had a prior substance abuse problem, right? Clean now, healthy, doing great. But that person recognized, if my spouse dies, that might be a trigger for me.
Mm-hmm.
All this money's going to pay out on a life insurance, and we have kids, and I want to make sure that even if I'm triggered, we have something in place that makes sure that this doesn't go to hell in a handbasket, right?
And so on that note, it really becomes something that you can get very intentional, very creative, and craft exactly what you want to happen based on your wishes and your desires.
Exactly. What's going on in your life and what your needs are.
Because if you don't, then someone else is going to decide for you. And it's been a whole bunch of senators in the legislature that are going to decide what happens to your stuff after you die. And I promise you don't want that to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been super great to for me to have all the reminders about you and like our history and you coming to the office and working here with us, because I can't imagine if that hadn't happened, right? That we've had so much growth with you here and adding practice areas, because then we weren't afraid to add more practice areas after that.
Sure.
So thank you for listening today, and thank you for telling us all about you again. And if you are in need of estate planning or adoptions or, some business planning things with Tosha, check us out at hrlawomaha.com and all over social media. And check out our pictures of the octopus. You'll find them on social media.
Yes, absolutely.
This is the Lady Lawyer League podcast, Omaha's leading lady lawyers, empowering women to be legal savvy. Hosted by Susan Reff and Tracy Hightower of Hightower Reff Law.